My Time at Sandrock is Pythia's take on the life simulation of video games. It's one that, for better or worse, brings exciting new things to the genre, while making it still somewhat familiar to the fans that have supported it ever since the first title dropped in 2019. However, while I can't say I fully remember the time I had in Porsche, Sandrock, which is the sequel's world, is far more interesting and somewhat a bit more challenging. It takes a lot of Porsche's good traits that I have enjoyed back when I reviewed it in the PlayStation 4 and adds more to it, so it doesn't feel like you're playing the same old game with the same old mechanics. My Time at Sandrock, as I have just mentioned, is a life simulation game. In scale, you can compare it to the likes of Stardew Valley or just about any of the many games the genre has busted out over the years. Faith Farm, for example, was one of the more recent ones I had managed to get my hands on a few months back, and it's one of those that really stood out to me in a few ways. While Stardew Valley, and to a certain extent, Faith Farm, dives a bit more into the farming aspect to start you out, Pythia's My Time at Porsche and My Time at Sandrock tackles it with a more craft-heavy approach. This already gives the game a bit more of a separation to the usual things we've had, so if you even wanted to play a life sim game and really didn't want to apply your lands until the soil for the 100th time, Sandrock might just be the kind of thing you would feel familiarity, but at the same time, different. When it comes to its actual content and story, the game follows 3 different paths, each of which has their distinct features, that also switches back and forth with the other. There's the story behind a gang of bandits, to which pretty early on, you will get to see a glimpse on as the days go by. You also get to explore the abandoned ruins after a couple of story bits that, Yen, the game's resident lazy-ass forced upon you, which leads to a path to unlocking forgotten items invented in the ancient world. Then there's, well, you know, the mutant lizards attacking the town. You get to beat the crap out of them, so, hooray? But outside of its 3 main stories, you also get to live a life in a desert wasteland, completing tasks from its residents and making a name for yourself as the best builder in a town that doesn't really have a lot of competition anyway. So that's great, I guess. As a life simulation game, Sandrock is a pretty solid addition to the genre. It's a bit more on the crafting and commission side though, which leads to a lot of scavenging around the desert, or exploring the abandoned ruins and mining its precious resources. It's a completely separate experience to Faith Farm, where my days start off by caring for my plants, before venturing out in the depths of the caverns, compared to here, where you usually started off by finding a task in the commission board, then eventually diving deep in the ruins, before heading back to your workshop to build and finish said task. Similarly, stamina management is usually something that's tied to these types of games, and this is no different. You get quite a bit of it, however, where it kind of starts to rot, is when you're doing a task like fighting an enemy or mining an ore for their precious resources, only to be one whack short to deal the final blow. There are a lot of things that really make Sandrock a fun place to explore. The town, which has quite a bit of nooks and crannies, even provides you with quite a bit of hidden treasure chests to unlock, to reap their rewards, before dismantling them for resources. You've also got quite a handful of unique residents, that range from the basic pets that you'd normally see on households, to a talking crow from an untalkative man. So, getting their friendship levels to eventually settling down with someone is a huge part of the game, and ties up pretty well as you unlock new tasks from them, before actually tying the knot, until death do us part. Meanwhile, its combat system and weapon types do provide some form of, well, let's say, strategy. Strategy that involves having a much higher HP pool than your enemy, and hacking and slashing away at them as they drop dead, vanish, and eventually turn to dust, before giving up resources like it's some kind of reward. But hey, at least there are a couple of weapon types that you can try out. From a sword and shield that allows you to block attacks, to a greatsword that boasts power at the expense of attack speed. Sandrock's world is somewhat vast, while still somewhat barren. It makes sense as it is a desert wasteland, and things like drought, which leads to a lack of water sources, means that your machines need them to prevent them from overheating. This leads to some bit of challenge as you're less inclined to just break down everything you obtain and throw them into the recycler, or craft stuffs at an excess should you need it.
Take this.
However,
See you
you
later.
do eventually get more quality of life improvements as you progress. Things like dew collectors, that is unlocked by researching them in the research center, allows you to collect dew as the name implies, and this can be used on a handful of things, like increasing the stored water in your reservoir. Eventually, you do get to unlock more space for yourself. At the cost of some gold, you can unlock tiny bits of land to place your machinery and other facilities like barns and stables. You can even fully build and customize your own house, or add greeneries and trinkets to make it unique. Imagination is your only limit here, and maybe the amount of gold you currently have. Sadly, Sandrock isn't the perfect game. I had a couple of times where the game starts to feel off. One of those reasons was when I was doing a task that involves unlocking the horse from the town stable. At first, it all seems well and dandy while I was following the NPC, however, it all went south when said NPC just straight up didn't move at all, after saying that I should follow them. This ended up with me just running back to my bed, which led to a failed task. There are also no fast travel points in the world, so having a horse definitely helps a lot, which, in a way, is better than walking, but controls can be a bit awkward if you need to turn around in a cramped space while mounted. This last bit is more of a nitpick, but I really liked how Fae Farm does its tool management. There you can automatically equip and use the right tool like a pickaxe or shovel as you get close to certain resources. Sandrock, and honestly, every other game similar to this, just have hotbars for your tools and other stuffs, so you still need to manually scroll through them to do certain tasks, which is not exactly terrible, but it's just that Fae Farm has spoiled me a bit on this one. My time at Sandrock is fun. The time I had while playing the game, exploring its ruins, and crafting all sorts of items to help the townsfolk, was a worthwhile experience. But even more so, I just enjoyed it as a game that leaves me with a lot of fun memories, as I delve in its intricate stories and relationships. It might not have the best combat system around, but as a life simulation game, it does the job that it intends to do. So, if you've been meaning to scratch an itch left by your favorite life sim, this is one that has potential, especially if you enjoy playing with friends thanks to its multiplayer. And for everything else gaming, choose Envision.
A community built by gamers.